Mr. Galambos, ladies and gentlemen, I've been asked to give some comments about my role as Lance's father and how these may be of some durable value to each of you in this room who are parents and who aspire to raise children to flourish in Spaceland. But first, my thanks and gratitude to you, Mr. Galambos, for the privilege of being a part of this historic occasion, the 20th anniversary of the founding of the Free Enterprise Institute, and to you, Mr. Atkins, for your stirring tribute to my son Lance, which is a beautiful example of the concept of positive justice that Galambos has taught us. Thanks to your courage and early evidence of indomitable will and commitment to this theory, and to your gratitude and your compassion, Mr. Galambos, my son's short but happy and productive life will not have been lived in vain. I ask, what greater reward, ladies and gentlemen, can a father have than to know that his love and preparation of his offspring for life could come to this? How is it that I succeeded in preparing a young man for Spaceland goals, for rational and moral behavior, and for that matter, all of my children, without exception, and many of their friends and acquaintances? The answer consists in brand name. Not just any brand name, mind you. There have been brand names throughout history, but they have come to little or nothing for one or another reason. No, this brand name is unique. It leads to the liberation of the human mind and of the human spirit. It leads to freedom itself. And you all can have it. Once it is yours, it is my belief that it is practically a fait accompli that your children will join you in the cosmic voyage. Over the years, I've developed some rules for rearing my offspring, each of which has been derived from the theory of volitional science, as I see it. And hopefully, these will be of value to you. The first rule is to constantly study and live the theory. Over the past 16 and a half years, I've seen many people take V50 and go on to V201 and the still more advanced courses, only to eventually fall away into the specious and damning safe harbors of flatland. I do not believe these people were necessarily hostile so much as they just were unable to cope with the law of logarithmic stimulation. They fail to recognize that there is a kind of inversely proportional relationship between our increments of intellectual growth and the psychological stimulation that we get from them. Nor did they see or recognize that unless we hold our feet to the fire and continually expose ourselves to this theory, and to repeat the courses, and to witness live Galambos' making of history, it is inevitable that we will lose our motivation and our comprehension of the theory in a way that logarithmically falls off with time. To obviate this, I've taken V50 8 times in the first 3 sessions of that great course, more than double that number. And by way of the compactions of V40, still another 19 times. I've taken V201 so many times I don't remember the number. And I've continually taken the more advanced courses, and I've repeated them. The result has been a gradual sharpening, a painstaking resolving of my comprehension of the theory. That most people do not do this and fall away reminds me of the Michelangelo anecdote that Galambos has related to us, how the casual passerby failed to see that the master was necessarily and painstakingly adding trifle after so-called trifle to his work, and thus emerging from mediocrity and oblivion into durable greatness and perfection of achievement. Ladies and gentlemen, we must not fall prey to the syndrome of casual indifference to the prospect of a great achiever perfecting his work. Only if we rivet our minds to the theory will we cultivate a long-term attitude such that the inevitable byproducts of discipline and patience will emerge, and only then will our children see in us the constancy, the integrity, and the strength that without a single word spoken will inspire them to follow our examples. This is our supreme duty as I see it, and it is the first rule. The second is to supplement affection with right philosophy. Our children want more from us than our instinctual love, as I see it. They want knowledge. So we must give it to them. It is our duty. I recall some time back a customer of mine asked me where he had gone wrong in raising his son. He had done all the conventional things. He'd taken him to Little League games, enrolled him in the Boy Scouts, gone on hikes with him, and taken him to church, and so on. Yet when he sent his son to college, he adopted the socialist doctrines of his professors. He grew his hair long, he took to drugs, and was openly living with a girl, and moreover, denounced his father's wealth as capitalist greed. The man wept when he told me these things. Ladies and gentlemen, that very evening I signed him and his wife up for Concept 21, after explaining to them both that they had not erred in showing their affection for their son, but in having never taken the responsibility of teaching him right philosophy. The third rule is to be intellectually intimate. Let your children know what you are reading and what you're thinking about. Share with them your disgusts of Flatland and your assessments of the headlines and of the people and issues of the times. Be a safe, intimate sounding board for their first attempts at articulating right ideas. When my boys were 9 and 10 years of age, I introduced to them the thrusts for freedom. We spent many hours going over these definitions and every single word in each of these definitions. When I was convinced that they understood them, I invited them to give me little lectures on them. These first intellectual awakenings left positive, durable marks on their egos, and they made us inseparable. The fourth rule is to be emotionally explicit. As Galambos has taught us, our emotions are the flavor and the color of knowledge and of life itself. So we must not bottle them up. Remember that all of our emotions but hate are capable of having a rational and moral basis. If we stuff them, we cease to be real. We become dull. In short, we become emotional phonies and mummies. Let your children see you when you are happy and when you are joyous. Do not withhold your tears from them or your anger when your heart is broken. If your children see that what you're thinking is what they're seeing, they will be emboldened to have emotional courage as well as intellectual courage. The fifth rule is to be black and white, not gray. Let your children see you standing up for the right and denouncing the wrong. If they see you vacillating, they will lose confidence in you. We all have now the criterion of absolute rightness. I believe we should use it and test every issue of our lives with it, and make sure that our children participate in this exercise with us. Galambos has referred to science as a search for absolutes in a world of relative observations. I have made this my family's heritage, ladies and gentlemen. The sixth rule is to stand up to every encroachment of hippieism. If you love the theory, you will love order. And if you love the theory, you cannot help but love rationality and morality. This means that long hair, pot parties, hippie talk, rock concerts, sexual promiscuity, drugs, and every other excrescence of the hippie movement will become unbearably painful for you to bear. When your young sons come home growing their hair long, or your daughters attempt to look like inferior males, stop. Call them on it. When my sons were in junior high school, they too felt the urge to let their hair grow a little longer for the sake of peer group pressure comfort, as they say. Ladies and gentlemen, I sat them down right then and there and gave them lectures on the concepts of entropy, order and disorder, and the necessity of identifying with the ideological program. And to make sure it stuck, I supplemented these lectures with powerful images and slogans so that their emotionality would tend to more easily gravitate toward men of culture and refinement than to savages. I referred to hippies as Stone Age creatures and to the gun-run schoolyards as Dark Age carnivals and to rock concert stars as naked, painted savages. Little did my children realize then that I was uniting the second and the third steps of the ideological program in safeguarding them from falling prey to the hippie world that was all around them. The seventh rule is to teach, teach, teach. Moses taught the Israelites to take the words he had given them into their hearts. They were to teach them diligently unto their children, and to talk of them as they sat in their houses, and when they walked by the way, and when they lay down, and when they rose up. They were to bind them for a sign upon their hands, and as frontlets between their eyes. And they were to inscribe them on the pillars of their houses and on their gates. I believe this should be our attitude with our children and our families. The last rule is to look upon our children as species timescale investments. I have taken all altruism out of my filial ties. I look upon my children as private, personal, and intimate investments into the future, both in the primary and the secondary sense. By so doing, I have succeeded, ladies and gentlemen, in bridging all the so-called generation gaps with sensitivity, gratitude, and rationality. If you follow these rules, you may have the great good fortune of having a child who will be capable of writing something like this, because you have brand name with him or her. I found it in my son's diary shortly after his death. It was the very first thing he had ever written. He was only 12 when he wrote it. My life goal is the promotion of freedom, and to be the equal, if not the superior, of my learned father in all aspects of mental talent. His wish for his offspring to surpass him in knowledge shall be the foundation of my inspiration. I'm the only person I have the knowledge of having such an extraordinary father. He's taught me the way to think rationally and has saved me once and for all from the insidious hands of our degenerate society. And for that reason alone, I'm forever indebted to him as my teacher and father, and I figure I owe him his wish of his offspring to carry on the Martin reputation. I thank you, ladies and gentlemen.